In this video, we're going to be looking at how to manage transition and change in a continuous improvement or process improvement project, and specifically take a look at the Lewin model, sometimes called the benefits versus burdens model. The specific learning objectives are going to be to review the importance of integrating change management and managing change resistance in a process improvement project. We'll then introduce the Lewin model, sometimes called the benefits versus burdens model or the force field model for change management. We'll then show how your messaging and communication changes throughout the lifespan of a DMAIC-based project when you're using the Lewin model. And finally, we'll wrap things up by exposing a key weakness that the model has when it's used on process improvement project work. All right, I've cleaned my screen up a little bit, and I'm pulling this information from the Business Process Improvement course workbook. And before we get started with some change management models, specifically the Lewin model, what I want to do is I want to take a step back and just remind everybody the importance that change management and managing transitions from current state to future state, how it's an important part of seeing a successful or effective business result. I use this equation, the Meijer equation, quite often to reinforce the idea that if you want to see an effective business result, you have to manage really two big aspects of any type of project. The first aspect is one that is, I guess, somewhat intuitive when it comes to process improvement. There is a set of tools and there's a set of technical tools, analysis techniques, and approaches that can be used for data-driven problem solving. That's the Q side of the equation. And that's very important. These robust solution sets don't just fall out of the air. Work has to be done on identifying current state performance, determining root causes, building future state solutions that attack those root causes. That's part of the Q, the DMAIC, Kaizen, PDCA. You could argue phase-based project management or waterfall project management, agile project management. All of these approaches help with Q. But even more important than the Q side of the equation, I think, is the A side of the equation. Building user acceptance is often a piece that we forget about in a process improvement project, or we treat as a secondary set of activities, a set of activities that we'll do after the implementation is complete, or a set of activities that we'll do just as a quick check-in before or right during the kickoff of a project. Carving out time and resources throughout the lifespan of your project on ways to increase user acceptance is really important. The A is all about user acceptance to the solution, and the A is really about effective change management and transition management. And one of the most popular approaches at managing change in a project-driven environment, managing transitions from current state to future state in a project-driven environment is the Lewin model, sometimes called the force field or the benefits versus burdens model. And let's take a look at how this approach can help to increase big A, an important part of seeing overall effective solutions in the workplace. In the benefits versus burdens model, or the sometimes called force field theory model, it's a pretty simple concept. It's a pros and cons discussion or communication messaging that you want to have with stakeholders that are affected by the process improvement initiative. And the idea is we want to make sure that we articulate the benefits or the pros of the movement from current state to future state and how those benefits outweigh the burdens or the frustrations that we now see in current state. If the benefits don't outweigh the burdens, why would anybody want to move to that future state solution? So simple concept, pros and cons list, making sure that people are aware of all of the features or capabilities that they're going to see in a future state solution. Part of this simple approach, though, is a three-phased way of going about the communication in the sharing of information that you're giving to stakeholders. In a process improvement project, we don't know what the solution is at the beginning of the project. The solution is unknown. Because the solution is unknown, our first messaging to stakeholders that are affected by this process is that the team, you and the team, will be working towards unfreezing current state. We don't know what the solution is yet, but we are investigating what is broken in current state, and we're going to use this information to eventually make changes. We don't know what the change is yet, but a change is coming. That's what happens in the unfreeze portion of your communication. At some point, though, you'll have collected that information using tools typically in the define and measure phase. Those are the phases in which we're collecting data on current state, both qualitative and quantitative. We'll have determined what our current state performance is at. We'll have data on the system. And once that's done, then we start to communicate to the rest of the world what the change is going to be. Typically, this is done towards the end of the analyze phase when you have identified root causes. Definitely at the end of the improve phase when you know what the refined solution set is that's going to be implemented. So in define and measure, we're communicating that a change is going to happen. In analyze and improve, we're communicating it's no longer going to happen. It is happening, and here are the specifics behind it. Here's what our implementation looks like, and here's what the specific solutions are and how they attack specific root causes. And then the messaging changes after the solutions have been implemented and been measured and have been shown to create the improvement that we're looking for. In the third part of the benefits versus burdens communication plan, we work on statements around refreezing. The solution has now been implemented. It's been measured in future state. We've shown that performance gains occur. This is typically done in the control phase. And we're now telling folks that this new, better way isn't an option anymore. It has been shown to be a better way. The new way is the way. We call it the refreezing of future state. So first we communicate unfreeze, a change is going to happen. Then we communicate once we know what the specifics of the change initiative are, the details behind it, changes happening now. Here are the specifics and here are how you can help. And then after the change has been shown to make a better future state in the refreeze, we lock it in, explaining why this new better way is now the way. What I thought I'd do next is just draw out a couple of the characteristics associated with the benefits versus burdens model, and hopefully point out a key weakness that the model has. I'm not saying don't use the approach, but beware of this particular weakness. And here's what I mean. When we're doing a benefits versus burdens transition management approach, in current state, there's typically frustration, complexity, problems, and dissatisfaction. Folks are frustrated. Your goal is to explain how in future state, the solution set that we'll come up with will be easier, simpler, we'll have more satisfied customers. Here are a couple of problems though. With a process improvement project, we don't start with a solution in mind, and so at first we won't know how to get here. You're going to rely on data-driven problem solving to eventually get you there, but in early phases, it's going to be more about communicating that we know that there are problems. We're trying to measure the impact that those problems have. And that can feel like stalling for some individuals. I just want to know what the answer is, and you won't be able to give that right away. That's um, that's a weakness of this approach. There's another probably bigger weakness though, and that's the fact that there are frequently individuals in the workplace, process workers, internal stakeholders, that have learned how to adapt and in some cases thrive in the frustrating, complex, problem-ridden process world that we live in right now. They've learned how to adapt and they have become firefighters. They have become people that we rely on within the process to save the day when problems happen. And if you describe to them that in the future, we're going to change the skills and knowledge that's needed to run this process successfully, that can be fearful and even more frustrating for some of those folks that have learned to thrive, adapt, and thrive in that environment. And so sometimes painting a picture of benefits will make some folks excited, but you'll still have a few change resistors. And so other change management models should be considered in a process improvement environment. You won't necessarily get everybody on board by just talking about the benefits of future state.